The Mackenzie Lueck case is a chilling example of a trusting encounter turning into a brutal crime. Mackenzie Lueck, a 23-year-old University of Utah student, disappeared on June 17, 2019, after returning to Salt Lake City from a trip home to California for her grandmother's funeral. After landing at the airport, she took a Lyft ride to Hatch Park in North Salt Lake, where she was last seen meeting an individual. When she stopped responding to texts and calls, her family reported her missing, sparking a widespread investigation. Police quickly identified Ayoola Ajayi, a 31-year-old tech worker and former Army IT specialist, as a suspect. Ajayi was linked to Lueck through phone records, and further evidence revealed that the two had arranged to meet via a dating app. A search of Ajayi's home uncovered damning evidence, including charred personal items belonging to Lueck and burned human remains in his backyard. DNA testing confirmed that the remains matched Lueck. Investigators pieced together the gruesome details. Ajayi had picked Lueck up at the park and taken her to his home, where he murdered her and attempted to burn her body in his backyard. When his attempts to destroy the remains failed, he transported her charred body to a remote area and buried it. Ajayi was arrested on June 28, 2019, and charged with aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and desecration of a human body. During his trial, it was revealed that Ajayi had a history of predatory behavior, including allegations of sexual assault and domestic violence. In October 2020, Ajayi pled guilty to aggravated murder and desecration of a corpse. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The murder of Mackenzie Lueck shocked the community and sparked conversations about the risks of online dating and the importance of personal safety. Lueck's family and friends remembered her as a vibrant, loving young woman with a bright future ahead of her. Her tragic death serves as a somber reminder of the dangers posed by predators who exploit trust and vulnerability. The Skylar Neese case is a heartbreaking story of betrayal and premeditated murder by two of the victim's closest friends. Skylar Neese, a 16-year-old honors student from Star City, West Virginia, vanished on July 6, 2012. Initially thought to have run away, her case revealed a chilling truth that shocked her community. Skylar had snuck out of her home late at night to meet her two best friends, Shelia Eddy and Rachel Schoaf. Surveillance footage showed Skylar getting into a car with them around midnight. The three drove to a remote area near the Pennsylvania border, where they had often hung out before. However, this time, Eddy and Schoaf had sinister plans. They had been plotting Skylar's murder for months, motivated by what they later described as not liking her anymore. Once they reached the remote location, Eddy and Schoaf pretended to look for something on the ground, and then attacked Skylar with kitchen knives. Despite Skylar's attempts to fight back, the two overpowered her, stabbing her over 50 times. After killing her, they attempted to bury her body, but the ground was too hard. Instead, they covered her with branches and left her in the woods. For months, Eddy and Schoaf pretended to be distraught over Skylar's disappearance, even helping her family search for her. However, the investigation began to unravel when Schoaf, unable to cope with the guilt, confessed to the crime in January 2013. She led police to Skylar's remains, which were recovered from the wooded area 6 months after her disappearance. Both Eddy and Schoaf were arrested and charged with Skylar's murder. Schoaf pled guilty to second-degree murder and received a 30-year sentence. Eddy, who refused to cooperate initially, eventually pled guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The case left the community stunned, raising questions about how two teenagers could commit such a brutal act against their best friend. Skylar's parents became advocates for missing children, pushing for legislation to make Amber Alerts more accessible for cases involving children who are not believed to be abducted. Skylar Neese's murder serves as a grim reminder of how betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. The Kenia Monge case is a tragic story of a young woman whose life was cut short by a predator. On April 1, 2011, 19-year-old Kenia Monge disappeared after a night out with friends in Denver, Colorado. She had been at a nightclub but left without her purse or phone, and her sudden disappearance set off alarm bells for her family. The investigation revealed that Kenia had accepted a ride from Travis Forbes, a 31-year-old self-described entrepreneur who claimed he was helping her after finding her intoxicated. Forbes initially told police that he had dropped Kenia off safely at a gas station. but his story quickly unraveled under scrutiny. Surveillance footage from the gas station showed Forbes but no sign of Kenia. Investigators became suspicious and began to dig deeper into his background. Forbes had a history of criminal behavior, and police discovered evidence tying him to Kenia's disappearance. His behavior became even more suspicious when he was linked to a separate case involving Lydia Tillman, a Fort Collins woman who survived a brutal attack by Forbes just months later. Forbes had broken into Tillman's home, sexually assaulted her, and set her apartment on fire, leaving her severely injured. Tillman's courageous survival and her ability to identify Forbes helped build the case against him. In September 2011, Forbes confessed to Kenia's murder as part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He admitted to strangling her and disposing of her body in a cooler, which he then left in a field outside of Denver. He led investigators to the location of her remains, providing her family with some closure. Forbes was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Kenia Monge case highlights the dangers of trusting strangers and serves as a reminder of the importance of personal safety. It also showcases the resilience of survivors like Lydia Tillman, whose strength helped bring a dangerous predator to justice. Kenia's family has worked to honor her memory and raise awareness about violence against women. The Bobbie Jo Stinnett case is one of the most shocking and tragic examples of murder motivated by maternal obsession. On December 16, 2004, Bobbie Jo, a 23-year-old dog breeder from Skidmore, Missouri, was 8 months pregnant when she was brutally murdered in her home. Her killer, Lisa Montgomery, strangled her and cut her baby from her womb in a horrifying act of violence. Montgomery had pretended to be interested in purchasing a rat terrier puppy from Bobbie Jo, whom she met through online forums about dog breeding. Using the alias Darlene Fisher, Montgomery arranged to meet Bobbie Jo at her home. Once inside, Montgomery attacked her, strangling her to death with a rope. After killing Bobbie Jo, Montgomery used a kitchen knife to perform a crude cesarean section and abducted the baby. Montgomery then drove back to her home in Kansas, where she began passing off the newborn girl as her own child. However, the community quickly mobilized to find Bobbie Jo and the missing baby. Friends and family alerted police to Montgomery's suspicious behavior and her sudden possession of a newborn. Investigators traced Montgomery's internet activity and linked her to the fake identity she used to contact Bobbie Jo. They apprehended her at her home the next day, where the baby was found alive and unharmed. The infant, later named Victoria Jo Stinnett, was safely returned to her father. Montgomery's trial revealed a history of severe mental health issues and abuse, but prosecutors argued that her actions were premeditated. They pointed to her research on performing cesarean sections and her deliberate efforts to fabricate a pregnancy. In 2007, Montgomery was convicted of federal kidnapping resulting in death and sentenced to death. After years of appeals and a contentious debate over her mental competency, Lisa Montgomery was executed by lethal injection on January 13, 2021, becoming the first woman executed by the U.S. federal government in nearly 70 years. The case remains a heartbreaking reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked mental illness and the lengths some will go to satisfy delusional desires. Bobbie Jo is remembered as a kind and loving woman whose life was tragically stolen.